kind of am obsessed with vocation and how it plays into our lives. And every person, whether you're a teacher or a lay member at a company or a mother, um, God has placed you in such a specific role in the kingdom and in your life and in other people's lives. And He has blessed me with gifts that other people don't have in the same way that He has blessed other people with gifts that I don't have. And so it's realizing that God is using you where He has placed you.
You are listening to the Gird Up Podcast, an unapologetically Lutheran voice for the ordinary Christian. My name is Charlie Ungemak, and today our guest is Mara Rugen, who's joining us for a conversation about what it's like to be a lay woman doing online ministry and working with a church start. And it's a fascinating conversation. She's a good hang. We'll get to her in just a moment. But first, I'm going to encourage you to be a part of the mission and the movement to flood the internet with confessional content. If you want to be part of that mission, you're in the right place. Hit follow or subscribe, leave a rating or review, and share this episode with somebody that needs a community just like this one. One of the ways you can support us is to consider making a donation. We call it a cup of coffee donation because for the price of a cup of coffee, you can help fund the ministry we're doing here at Gird Up. Just go to www.girdupministries.com, select buy us a cup of coffee in the main menu, and make your donation there. If you want to stay connected, you can sign up for the Gird Up Dispatch. And finally, if you've got questions or topics you want to hear us address or guests you want to hear me interview here on the show, send those suggestions our way via the link in the show notes as well. If you're interested in sponsoring an episode or two of the Gird Up Podcast, reach out to me and let me know. Before we get started with the show, I want to take just a couple seconds to talk about a project that I have going on, specifically talking to pastors and church council members and church leaders who are listening right now. I want you to think about the last time you went to a new restaurant or visited a new town. There's a good chance before you went there, you checked it out online. I just did that in Knoxville this weekend. I went online and Googled a whole bunch of stuff to figure out what exactly I was going to do and where I was going to go, and looked at all the destinations online to decide what I wanted to do, what I didn't want to do, where I wanted to be, where I didn't want to be, all that kinds of stuff, right? What food I wanted to eat, what food I didn't want to eat. Your community is doing the exact same thing to your church. Before a visitor ever steps foot through your sanctuary doors to hear the word of God, which is what creates faith, they are looking through your digital front window, your website, and your social media pages. But let's be honest, most of our confessional Lutheran churches don't have the time, the staff, or the tech know-how to be doing social media well, and your church is probably one of those places. In order to fix that problem, you don't need to change your ministry. You don't need to act like you're the generic megachurch down the street. You just need to find ways to show the world who you really actually are. That's why I am launching my new project, Front Window Media. I want to work directly with congregations to take the things that you're already doing, your Sunday sermons, your Bible studies, your catechism classes, all that stuff, and helping you turn those things into high-quality professional content, digital content that invites people to the means of grace as they are presented at your church. So if you want to work with me and you want me to help you fix your digital front window so that the truth of Christ crucified in your community isn't hidden behind a clunky news feed, go to the website, send me an email, and we'll set up a free digital audit for your church. I'm excited to get to work, and I hope that I'll get the opportunity to work with you. Now let's get into the episode. Our guest today is Mara Rugen, a Lutheran laywoman, which is important to our conversation for today. She's a digital creator and a core member of the church plant team at Christ Alone Lutheran Church in Ammon, Idaho. She's also the founder of Into the World, which is an initiative that equips lay Christians with visual and theological resources that share the historic faith, the true Christian faith, in their daily vocations. And my understanding, I was looking at it, mostly geared toward women. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is.
That's
Yep.
awesome. All right. Well, glad to have you on the show, Mara.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, Idaho, huh? Idaho is not a place I think a lot of people have been. How did you end up in Idaho?
Yeah, so my journey to Idaho is actually I love sharing it because God is in every element of this. So when I was in college, I had an internship with Wells Missions. So that familiarized me with what a home mission was, what a world mission was, and kind of how that functions a little bit more. And then I went to Wisconsin Lutheran College, and so I think it was my junior year over Christmas, there was a Truth and Love Ministries mission trip to Arizona that I signed up for, not realizing what exactly it was that I was doing. And so going on that taught me about door to door ministry and sharing the gospel. And through that, Pastor Mark Parsons, who was the president at the time, introduced me to Idaho, he was one of the pastors helping facilitate this mission start here. So there were a lot of hands at work in bringing me to Idaho, but I had no plans after graduation, and Idaho sounded like a fun adventure, so now I'm here.
That's awesome. So Pastor Mark Parsons is he's a good friend of the show. He's a good man, good guy to have around. And now
Mhm.
one of the newest professors at Martin Luther College as well.
Yes.
Very exciting. Mara, did you know, we haven't talked about this, I don't think. Did you know that
Mm.
I'm an evangelist with Truth and Love? That's my
I didn't
seminary
know that.
job.
No, I didn't
Yeah.
know that. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So going back to work for them in just a month or two. So very excited, and new
Yeah.
leadership over there and everything too. So it's a
Mhm.
very exciting time to be part of Truth and Love. So I'll throw a plug in there now. If anybody's curious about Truth and Love or sharing the gospel with Mormons, we're probably not going to talk much about it in this conversation
Mhm.
unless it comes up. But if you want to be able to do a real good, effective job of sharing the gospel with Mormons, which not a lot of folks are doing, Truth and Love is an excellent resource for you.
Mhm.
Anyway, I we were just talking off air. You sounds like you were born out on Eastern Seaboard, spent most of your life in Michigan.
Mhm.
I'm curious, how different is life in, I guess, is it the Pacific Northwest? Is it the Rockies, I guess? I
Mountain
don't really.
West, yeah.
Yeah, Mountain West. How is life different there than it is in, we'll say, Michigan?
Yeah, so, I spent a lot of time in the Midwest between Wisconsin and Michigan, and so both sides of the lake with a different lake effect and winter. I'm going to touch on winter specifically. So moving out here, I was expecting higher elevation. The storms are going to be crazy. And the first year I moved out here, I moved out in March of that winter, and they had a very mild winter. It wasn't too bad. And then last year there was also a very mild winter, and I'm over here thinking, where is the snow? Like, I thought we were supposed to get buckets of snow, and I think it's just coincidental that the last 2 years have been very light, but that is one of the major differences. But one of the other things I didn't realize I would miss about the Midwest is the thunderstorms. There is not a lot of precipitation out here, and so we get some lightning storms out in the mountains. But as far as big thunderstorms and downpours go, we don't get a lot of that. So I do kind of miss thunderstorms. So whenever I'm back visiting in the Midwest, I love it when it's raining or downpouring.
Yeah, and there's something special about a good Midwestern thunderstorm. They're different
Yes.
there. They
Yes.
they just are a little bit different there. All right.
Absolutely.
How about the people? How
Mhm.
about the people? Are the people different out west than they are in the Midwest?
Yes. They're everyone's very nice, and I think that has to do culturally where we're at, in the United States, but everyone is wants to know everyone. And this area specifically has a lot of transplants, people moving here from Washington, Oregon, California. There's a lot of Californians that have moved here, Midwest individuals. So you've got a lot of that similar demographic of people moving out to this area, and they're kind of all starting new in a sense. And so that's what I've experienced, is that everyone is just super nice. Everyone wants to have you involved in whatever they're doing with their time, or a lot of the activities that are available in this area. So everyone is very kind and inclusive, and I think that's made it very easy for me to adapt to this area specifically. Um, yeah, so I think that kinda, like, sums it up pretty well of types of people here, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to this. I have ideas, like I have a picture in my mind. Um, this is anecdotally, obviously, but what's the
Mhm.
spiritual landscape
Mm.
like in a place like Idaho?
Yes, so the spiritual every not everyone. A large portion of the people here are religious. So that could be they're part of the LDS church, they're Christian, Lutherans. There's all kinds of religious individuals here. And so that was probably one of the biggest differences from what I was planning for. When I first moved out here, I knew I was going to be losing my core group of Christian people, Christian friends that were right with me, encouraging me in the walk of life. So I kind of was setting myself up for like, who do I have in my corner when I move out here for that Christian encouragement, just with a smaller mission church start. Um, but what I found is that there's a lot of Christian community here, and there's a lot of religious community as well. But the thing that's the challenge is when I was in the Midwest, one of my big things was they'll, like in the Bible, it talks about they'll know me by seeing you, or they'll know me by how you live your life. And in the Midwest, I feel like it was easy. The answer was more clear on how to stand out. You're just kind. You hold the door for someone, you compliment someone, just those genuine interactions. But when I moved out here, I was really struggling with that because I'm like, well, everyone does that. Everyone's really nice. And so that has been really cool to see how God has transformed me to in ways that I don't even know are happening, but people comment on it of like, you're different. And that to me is just a huge blessing in that even though everyone's typically very nice and welcoming and kind and they have Jesus in their life, the faith that I have and relationship I have with Jesus is what stands out. And so that I've been really appreciative of that.
Yeah. What do you think it is that they're seeing in you that they're not seeing either in
Mhm.
themselves or in the people around them?
Yeah, I think the two biggest things are where we find our purpose, or I'll say identity, and then also just contentment. Recently, the book of Ecclesiastes has become my favorite book, one of my favorite books of the Bible, because I think it's so relatable to the general population of this world really is meaningless if there's nothing after it. And knowing that we are living for something more, I think without realizing it has impacted my life of I'm not living just for today. Every interaction that I have with someone has such purpose in it, and I'm not just going to work and going to bed at night. There is very much a lot of intentionality with each interaction. So I'd say, yeah, those two things, identity and contentment, are probably the things that probably stand out most about a Christian. So
It's your little in there just to make sure we all remember you're a Midwestern girl. I
I
heard you.
know.
I
No,
heard you.
I have a few friends here, and they're like, "Yeah, we hear the Midwest in you." And I'm like, "But I don't say phone. Like I say phone correctly." But there's little, yeah, tells like that, I guess, that I still
I
have.
had I was sitting in the car the other day with a friend. It was at a Wells conference actually. But I had my first, I'll call it Southern slip up, and I was saying something about my dad, and I referred to him as my daddy,
Yeah.
and it just came out so naturally, and I didn't even think about it. And he looked at me like I'm what? And I was like, I look, everybody talks that way down here. I I
Yeah.
don't expect it again, but, yeah, you get those little
Mhm.
linguistic changes is
Yeah.
interesting. It's fascinating to hear you talk about, your life as a Christian. Because do you work for the church,
Mm.
out there in Idaho? Like,
Yeah.
what is your involvement? Like, what
Mhm.
do you actually do for work?
Yeah.
And I guess maybe in order for people to notice your contentment, for example, you need to be having those kinds of spiritual conversations, at least to some degree,
Mhm.
right? Can you just give us a little snapshot into what that looks like for you?
Yeah, so I do work for the church part-time. I do website, social media, kind of digital presence type work for them. I do have a full-time job though. I work in marketing for an educational technology company out here. So that is probably where I have I not probably, I have met my group of friends through that work. Whether it's one person introducing me to their group of friends or just the immediate coworkers that are on my team. So we and the nice thing I'll add in here about the culture of this area is because so many people are religious, those conversations are frequent and so natural. And so that's one thing I've been very grateful for. With like even in the workplace, outside of the workplace, hey, why did you move here? well, I moved here for church. And I think that is just an easy, like, I don't have a way out of that. I can't hide that. They asked me a very direct question. The reason why I moved here is for church. And so that's been a blessing to have that excuse of like, it's pushing me to tell people about Jesus and that, the place it has in my life. But yeah, conversations are frequent, and the workplace, and then kind of connecting to the social life too, have kind of helped me meet more people in that way.
Yeah. Let's go there. The you moved here for church, right? Um you you told us how you got connected with the church.
hmm
I'm curious what was going on, like, mind and heart wise. Like, what went into that decision? You could have gone anywhere, right? And
hmm
do anything. What like, we know why Idaho, but going into a mission field also, like, there's no guarantee that the church is gonna make it, right? Church plants fail
hmm
all the time. There's a lot of factors here and a lot of, I guess, risk from an earthly standpoint, at least. Um, can you give us a little snapshot of what, how, what went into that decision? How'd you
hmm
get into a spot where you're saying, yeah, I do want to go out there and be a part of this?
Yeah. I love that question because not a lot went into it, to be honest. And I think what I've realized in my life, and this is not necessarily advice for anyone, but what I've realized is that the decisions that I have the least amount of information about, or I make naively, or not really sure what I'm doing, actually end up being the ways that God blesses me the most. And I'll go into like choosing to go to Wisconsin Lutheran College. People ask me, why did you choose to go here? And like they're looking for a really inspirational testimonial of why I chose to go to college there. And I'm like, I don't know. They accepted me. They have a business degree, and that ended up being a huge blessing in my life. The people I met, the degree I had, the connections I was able to get here. And I think the same goes for Idaho. I was kind of considering moving to Dallas after college. I knew I kind of wanted to go somewhere far. And I was actually visiting Dallas at the time, scoping it out. And that was when Pastor Parsons messaged me and was like, how serious are you about moving to Idaho? And it was really ironic. And I see God's hand in all this. That time, like literally, I'm walking downtown Dallas, realizing something just feels like off here. I don't know, I don't see myself living here. And that's when I got that text. And I'm like, you know what? Like maybe this is something I want to look into. And so there were conversations that went into that. There was planning and thought, I'm looking at apartments, seeing what life could look like out here, seeing all the national parks nearby. But it really came down to just I'm ready for an adventure. I know God's going to use me, and I'm ready to just embark on that. I mean, like, I wasn't in a relationship at the time, so it's not like I had to manage a long distance relationship, short distance, whatever. And so there wasn't a lot tying me down, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it was just you're only young once, and so it's just take the leap and go for it and see what happens. And God really blessed me with providing a job as well. That was another thing. The company I work at, my professor from college actually got connected with the company my last semester there because we sell marketing educational materials. And so like 2 months before I graduated, my professor is like, Mara, like there's this company out in Idaho Falls of all places. And I applied there, and after a few different job applications with them, I did get a position. And so it's not like this for everyone. So I don't want to scope this big false picture of everything always goes well, because there was definitely difficult things along the way. But I think it's the perspective shift of you're seeing God's hand at work. And I like to look at myself as an instrument or a tool. I'm just here. God, you direct me the direction you want me to go, and I'm just going to follow and just go for it. He'll use me wherever he places me.
Yeah. There's two directions I want to go here,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to make up in my mind which one I want to go. One of the big struggles that I'm hearing from, I guess, the women in my life, but then also just from a younger generation, and maybe it's because of the space that I'm in, but I think it's a real thing in a lot of places and in a lot of confessional Lutheran churches too. Not even Lutheran, just confessional churches generally. Um, that there are a lot of young women who are looking for their place in church, right? and want to be involved and want to be active and, play a role in what we're doing here, but don't want to be elementary school teachers,
Mhm.
right? And don't really want to be the church secretary. Um, or even if those things are something they might consider, maybe the position isn't available or whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
Um, I don't know what your path into this spot looked like,
Mhm.
um, but what encouragement maybe, and I'll leave it up to you to take this where you want, what encouragement would you have for a young woman maybe coming out of college like you, maybe a young mom who's saying, I want to be involved in the work of the church. I love my congregation. I just don't know how or where to get plugged in, and I don't want to teach. What might you say to her?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have definitely been there. Just in terms of my path was not to become a teacher. I considered it at one point, but I knew my skills didn't align with that area the best. Um, and so my advice, so I guess I have the two perspectives. So I grew up in a very um established church, and so kind of those ministries or those teams or those groups were kind of established, and it's I can totally understand how it's challenging to kind of step in or start something new in a well-established church. They kind of already have their processes going, but moving out here, um, you really are building a church from the ground up, and you're building it around the community and the people. I think that's the most important thing. Who are the people that we are surrounded by, and who are the people we're sharing the message with? Um, and in doing that, it's yeah, I could go so many directions with this too, but you have the opportunity as a core group member to kind of provide a lot of ideas and like, hey, we could do this, we could do this. And it's really refreshing to have conversations like that, just dreaming, just like the canvas is blank and you can do whatever you want with it, or make it however you want it to look. But it made me realize just because this is a new church does not mean this is not possible for established churches too. And I think it's having the space for those conversations of I have the unique perspective of like a business background. So not that the church is a business, but there are a lot of similarities with starting a church and making sure it's sustainable and functioning and you're reaching the people you're trying to reach. And so I think if you have a space for those types of conversations of who are the people that we're reaching? And this can be like internally with yourself or with a group of other people, but who are we trying to reach? Who are we surrounded by? And how can we reach them? And I think the easy, obvious way is, oh, let's start a ministry team at church. Let's start a mom's group to go play at a park or whatever it is. And those are totally, I love all those ideas. We have our core group here. Everyone is just in the community starting their own things, and they're just doing it. They're not waiting for like a fully fleshed out plan before they start. They just go for it. But then I don't want to forget also like vocation. I kind of am obsessed with vocation and how it plays into our lives. And every person, whether you're a teacher or a lay member at a company or a mother, God has placed you in such a specific role in the kingdom and in your life and in other people's lives. And he has blessed me with gifts that other people don't have in the same way that he has blessed other people with gifts that I don't have. And so it's realizing that God is using you where he has placed you. And I think it's easy to start comparing of like, well, that person, it's really easy for them to do this, or they're doing that. I should start doing that too. And it's very easy to start comparing yourself, but it comes back to what are the skills that I have and what do I want to do with those? Um, and I just think it's easy to get caught up in let's put together I kind of talked about this before, but a fully fleshed out plan. Let's make sure every detail is thought about before we begin or launch or do any sort of resemblance of what we want this to look like. And we can maybe get in this later with Into the World, but that's very similar to how Into the World started, is that it wasn't a fully fleshed out plan. It was very much I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do it. And it has grown from that. And so I think don't hesitate just to do something and see where it goes and what God can do with it.
Yeah. I think we tend to be almost intimidated by small churches sometimes, right? We've been programmed by, I don't know, by all kinds of things to think that big church equals good church, or big church equals healthy church, or big church equals thriving church. And we can spend all day talking about why that is. And there's some good parts of that, and there's some bad parts of that, so forth. But small church is not a bad thing. And in fact, there's a lot of growing churches that look back at the days when the church was small and they miss those days, right? They miss the intimacy of connection. They miss the ability to shift and make changes and just try stuff.
Hmm.
And it's wonderful when churches grow. We rejoice that churches grow. It's really cool when churches grow. It means the kingdom of heaven is growing often also.
Hmm.
And yet at the same time, those small churches also are a really cool and unique blessing, both for those who are already part of it and for those who come in as the church grows as well. Can you talk a little bit about your experience as part of a really tiny little church that's now
Hmm.
growing?
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you compared the small church with maybe a more established or larger church, because I think there, like you said, there's blessings in both of them. But growing up, so I grew up in, a well-established large church. And, I was a child, so I'm not trying to be so hard on myself, but at the same time, it wasn't very involved. I just went to church on Sundays, and I prayed before meals, you do all the things. And I think it's easy in that environment to forget about the blessings of church. I think the Bible lays out so clearly the importance of church and the importance of gathering together with a community of believers. And it's not the only blessing is not only to hear the Bible on Sundays, it's to be with the people who have those same beliefs as you. And that has been something that I've really come to appreciate and become like a focus of my personal life and going forward, is that God has placed Christians around us for relationships. It's not we're just going on with our own lives, doing our own thing, staying in our lane, but it's interacting with each other. It's praying with each other. It's calling each other out in love. Um, and that's one of the blessings that comes very easily to a mission church, is that every single member, and you probably have some personal experience with every single member. And so yeah, it's been a huge blessing, thinking that I was gonna lose my Christian community, kind of like adapting to this new area in Idaho, but realizing that everyone wants to be with everyone wants to encourage everyone. You're not siloed as a member of a church. And so I think moving forward, who knows where I'm gonna end up, but whatever the church looks like, that's gonna be a big focus of mine. Of there are so many blessings that come with church, and one of those is Christian community, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be it can be a positive or a negative, but it's really easy to disappear into a big church too, right?
Mhm.
We think we have community, but in reality, we there's just a lot of people, right? And we kind of know a bunch of them, and maybe we're related to a few of them or something like that, right? Whereas it is really hard to hide in a small church, which can be great, and it can be a wonderful growing experience. If you've had a tough week or something, sometimes
Mhm.
it's not it's just like, "Everybody leave me alone and let me do church today,"
Absolutely.
right? Like, there comes it's not just it's hard to put that into a category even, I guess, of what to call it, but, it is part of reality. But it just is a very different experience than being a part of a really big church. You also mentioned how established churches tend to kind of lose um, that. I don't know if it's springiness or sponginess or what word I
Mm,
would put in there, but I think you know exactly what I'm talking about.
mhm,
And that, a lot of that has to do with leadership too. Um, but if I guess I would talk, I'm also obviously I went back to school at 27 years old to start studying to be a pastor,
mhm,
and literally left my life behind. Right, I'm wired this way too. Um, but sometimes if life just gets a little sleepy and you're sick of it, just go do something, right?
mhm,
Go do something. You reminded me a little bit. I don't know if this is what you were necessarily referencing, but Isaiah chapter 30, verse 21, and it's a little bit different context. But in Isaiah chapter 30, the Lord tells the prophet, whether you turn to the right or to the left, you will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." And we part of the marketing of like Reformed churches and a lot of the Baptist churches, which are also Reformed, and a lot of non-denominational churches, which are also technically Reformed or Baptist, if you look at their teaching, they put this huge emphasis on the personal relationship with Jesus. You'll hear people talk that way all the time. And we usually don't condemn that because we do want a personal relationship with Jesus. But what they mean by it is this like supernatural, I guess supernatural is the right thing too, but that you somehow can figure out what God wants and that you're always doing what God wants. And so everything from the breakfast cereal you eat, and I'm being a little hyperbolic here, but everything from the breakfast cereal you eat to the car you drive to the person you marry and all these things along the way, you're praying every day that God would make it clear to you what he wants you to do. And scripture seems to be making the opposite case, right? That I would trust that the Spirit is at work in me, and I would trust that the Lord is doing as he promised and working in me through the Holy Spirit, through the means of grace. And I say, all right, I am plugged into the word. I am plugged into the church community. I'm plugged into the sacraments. And so I trust, Lord, that you're going to do what you say you're going to do in me. And I'm just going to start doing stuff that I want to do, that's in front of me to do, that I care passionately about. I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to ask God for guidance all the way along the way. I'm going to trust that he's giving it to me. I'm going to do the best that I can, understanding sometimes I'm going to screw it up. And in the end, I do that. This is a phrase I like to use a lot during Bible study when people ask me questions that I can't really answer. And it's not really a punt. It's just the truth. There comes a point where you do the best you can and you ask the Lord to bless it and you ask the Lord to forgive you, right? I know somewhere along the way there was some pride. I know somewhere along the way, like this is all just drenched in sin because it's attached to me. So Lord, I pray that you forgive me for whatever sins are involved in this. And I also pray that you would bless it and establish it. And if the answer to blessing and establishing it is no, then you'll make that clear to me too, and I'll try something else. But we have this wonderful freedom to just go do stuff in the name of Jesus and see what happens, right? And it sounds like that's probably where into the world started. We'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. But I just wanted to maybe acknowledge that that's kind of what you're saying. That's kind of your story. It's my story too. And there's a lot of people out there, I think, who just, I don't know if they're afraid to do it. It's not a really popular thing to be doing in our little subculture of Lutheranism. And it certainly is something I think more people ought to be encouraged to do. Just go do something a little crazy every once in a while. Go do something a little bit foolish in the name of Jesus. The worst thing that can happen is you go back to your job and you keep plugging away and you keep being a part of the church you're already a part of. Like the worst thing that happens is that life
You're
goes
saved at
on.
the end of the day.
Like, what? So what? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I totally agree with what you're saying. And I think, and that's the beauty of God, working through our lives is that who knows, maybe this whole Idaho thing might end up not working out. It's worked out well for the last 2 years, but it's really almost giving your life to God in that sense of it. And if not, like you are still good. And if not, you are still going to bless this. And I think in those setbacks, or let's say I moved out here and I lose my job and I lose my apartment or whatever it is, life just crumbles. God is still shaping you in that. And I would dare to say in those moments, God's shaping you the most. I joke around with a lot of my friends of when I feel not complacent in my faith necessarily, but I haven't had a lot of aha moments. I pray this dangerous prayer for something hard to happen to me because I know there's going to be so much growth in that. And my relationship with Jesus is going to get so much stronger and I'm going to learn so much more about his character. And so, yes, it's scary, but at the same time, if not, he is still good and he's going to bless you and ultimately the kingdom in that. So,
yeah. I heard somebody say once at a presentation that the most blessed but most dangerous prayer any man could ever pray is that the Lord would make his life as difficult as necessary so that he would be forced to cling to Christ and remain faithful until death. And boy, is it hard to sit there or be on your knees and say, Lord, go ahead and make it
Mhm.
hard.
Yep.
That's exactly the opposite of what my flesh wants, but that should be something that should be
Mhm.
a war that alarm bells should be going off then too,
Mhm.
saying, "Oh yeah, I am pretty comfortable here."
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I'll add on to that really quick. I share that with a lot of people in my workplace, my friends, my what I like to call pre-Christian friends, of, "Oh my goodness, this just happened in my life and this sucks." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for you." And I say, "No, I asked for this." And I say, "I literally prayed 2 days ago that something hard would come into my life, and here it is." And they look at me all weird and they think, "Who does that?" And honestly, that's my goal in life. I want people to look at me and say, "You're weird. You're different. Why are you doing that?" I think that's the biggest sign that you are different than what the world gives is when someone looks at you with kind of, "Why the heck would you ask for something hard?" So it becomes like an evangelism opportunity too.
yeah, yeah, and notice at no point in this conversation have we said, do something crazy and the Lord will bless it, or that the Lord will heap rewards on it, or something like that. Maybe,
Mhm.
maybe He will. I like what you
Mhm.
said. If all else fails, I'm saved at the end of the day. So
Yes.
You know, that's the really important thing. You just used the phrase "my pre-Christian friends." Tell me about
Mhm.
that.
Yes. So that's a phrase that my pastor, Paul Krieger, started using here, or this is where I heard it for the first time. And I think that came from, you might be familiar with the book, Joining Jesus on His Mission. Um, it's an evangelism book of basically living life as an everyday Christian. Um, just going like your place in a vocation and you are a light for Christ wherever he places you. And what does that look like to live as a Christian in the world? And I think one of the terms, if I'm remembering correctly in that book, is our pre-Christian friends. And I said that to a few people and now it's just part of my vocabulary, but it has caught a few people of like, pre-Christian, what do you mean? And it truly hits home that everyone, like, there's everyone's on their own timeline. We don't know when they're going to come to faith. We don't know if we're going to witness it. We don't know if we're going to, like have a huge hand in that. We might even just be one conversation. But I think looking at people as pre-Christians is a really optimistic way to look at it. I've gone the other way of, oh my, like, I think after I came back from that mission trip, Truth and Love, actually, I was driving on the highway in Milwaukee and I'm driving past all these cars and I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, there's so many unsaved people on this highway. Like, I have a lot of work to do. But I think looking at it as you are just a link in the chain in this pre-Christian's life, and you're just living in the way that God, interacting with that person in the way that God has you placed. And I think that helps relieve a lot of the stress with that, knowing it's not all on my shoulders. In fact, it's not on my shoulders. God's just using me. He's the one working in all this. So,
Yep, yep. I'm just a tool. I'm just a vessel. I'm the plate
mhm.
that the gospel's on. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I read in a commentary once that somebody referred to unbelievers as candidates for grace. What an
Mm,
excellent candidate for grace! I thought that's a cool way of thinking about it.
mhm.
Candidates for grace. And I'm going to do whatever I can to help you get there.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, one more question for you, and I didn't prep you for this one, so I apologize
Okay,
in
perfect.
advance. But one more question for you, and then we'll get into the world a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a wonderful thing, but one of the big concerns for a lot of parents in particular when their children decide to leave the safety of their hometown or the Midwest or go to a public university or whatever it is that they're not going to find a Christian spouse, or they're not going to have Christians to date, like the dating pool disappears. And first of all, I would offer the evidence that not everybody that goes to a Lutheran college, for example, gets married at a Lutheran college. I'll just point that out.
Mhm.
But you even mentioned that it was a little bit of a part of your decision, right? You didn't have a relationship necessarily that that you had to manage, maybe, um, making the trip out there. Um, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think? What's your experience been like? Again, take it
Mhm.
wherever you'd like to go.
Yeah. I love this question because I actually just got engaged last week. And
Congratulations.
so
I saw a little,
thank you,
this
I
isn't why
know.
I'm asking, but I saw a little something sparkling there.
Yes. And it has been the coolest experience, dating my fiance. And he did not grow up in a Christian household. He did not grow up going to church. And it has been so cool to see how God has been working in his life before we met. And then when we met, it just kind of all fell into place for him. With being curious about what more is there out there, like what is God's plan for me and what is he doing with me. And I had this image in my head that I was going to marry a very specific kind of lifelong Christian or whatever it is that whoever, I think a lot of people have specific pictures in their head of who they're going to marry. Um, but it's realizing that it doesn't matter how long you've known Jesus, it's how he's changed your life. And I think that's been really cool with my fiance, of seeing the difference before and after knowing Christ and seeing how that drives his everyday now. And so I think it was actually funny. Earlier this spring, I was thinking, there is not a lot of people here in the dating pool. Should I just up and move to Houston? I mean, Texas is like Christian. It's kind of fun. It's not like what I'm used to. And so I was actively looking, for jobs in Texas. I was actively looking for apartments. I was working on what kind of community does Houston look like, or what kind of community does Houston have. And during that time, I was thinking just in my head, like, this guy doesn't exist. What I have in my mind doesn't exist. And God was really cool in that way. He dropped Daryl into my lap and has more than what I could ever pray for. And I think it's I've talked to a few people who have been that similar stage of like, my guy's not out there, my spouse isn't out there, they don't exist. And I've talked to a lot of people about their dating stories before they got married, and I hear frequently that it's this moment of just like, I give up. God, okay, I'm done. I'm done trying. It's you that's got to do something now. And I actually gave advice to a friend like this a few weeks ago, of just like, it's in those moments when you realize how incapable you are yourself, or how out of control you are yourself, is when you see God working the most. And so it really is releasing that. One other thing too, in terms of dating, that I had kind of was working through in my life, was I thought I deserved to get married. I thought that was a blessing that I deserved, and I should expect that in my life. And then I realized, talking with a few, Christian community, going back to how important that is, talking to other Christians and hearing their stories and realizing, who am I to expect that I deserve this blessing from God? And so it's reorienting that to, if God wants to use me in some different direction, is he still good enough for me? And it's realizing, am I idolizing that idea of a relationship, or am I looking at it as an opportunity for God to use me in that way if he pleases? And I think that was a big mindset shift for me, of, this is not something I deserve, this is a blessing. And so I think that's just a little bit of my experience in moving to an area where there's not a lot in the dating pool that I would say that would be eligible for me or what I'm looking for. But God still worked through that. So he's always working in the background.
Yeah, and I like the way you kind of put parameters on that too, right? You didn't say don't try or don't look, right? But you then framed it out and said, this is I had some, I don't know, for lack of a better term, I'll say problematic attitudes about it, and that's what changed, right? And opened the doors to, it sounds like a guy you probably wouldn't have considered under other circumstances, right? And I want to ask you another question about that in just a second. But since we're here, I want to dwell on that for just a second. You'll hear a lot of people say things like, God will give your spouse to you when you stop trying, or something like that. And I think we take that in the wrong direction. I think it's good advice to stop, quote unquote, trying to get married, because what I end up doing is and you mentioned this, I make an idol out of the thing, right? I make an idol out of marriage. I'm a guy, so I make an idol out of the girl, or whatever it might be. It's the stop trying to get married part, not the stop trying to meet people, so the stop trying thing isn't give up on marriage. The stop trying part of it is stop making that the thing you're obsessed with. And so maybe the best advice that I've ever gotten, this is years ago, and see, I'm already qualifying it because it was good advice because it hurt a little bit, right? Okay, so you're not finding what you're looking for. And when you do think you found what you're looking for, they're not particularly interested. So there is one thing that you do have control of, and that's you, right? And so whether that turns into a surrender moment, like what you're talking about, or it's like, all right, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If it happens, it happens. I'm not gonna. You clearly didn't stop looking, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
but I'll let the Lord do what He's gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that becomes an honest conversation with yourself where you're going, all right, let's be real. Like I need to make some changes, or I need an
Mm-hmm.
adjustment here or there. There's a reason why this isn't working, right? So it might look different. It's going to look different for everybody. It's going to look a little
Mm-hmm.
bit different no matter what your path is. But I just figured since it came up naturally, it'd be a good spot to just
Mm-hmm.
inject that there. The stop trying so hard part isn't stop looking for a spouse or stop wanting to be married and all that. It's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good thing to want the blessings that the Lord offers you, right? But when you make those an idol, then that's where the challenge comes in. Here's my question for you.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Okay. This is one of my favorite questions. What are your thoughts on the flirt and convert?
Yeah, well, I've heard of it. I don't know if I know exactly what it is. Can you? Oh, yes.
Well, so
You explain it first, and then
specifically,
I'll answer.
specifically dating with the intent. So dating non-Christians with the intention of converting them to Christianity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, to be blunt, that's a dangerous game to play. I think because at that point, your priorities are in conflict. Is our main purpose, not to say that sharing the gospel stops when you get married, but is our main purpose to share the gospel or the main purpose to find a suitable partner? And I think it's personally, that's a dangerous line for me to walk. Just because there's a lot that needs to take place in order for, I think, a marriage to be successful. And in my case, I feel very blessed that my fiance was already on that path before we met, and so it wasn't. And I wanted to be very careful that, I'm not making him into who I want him to be, but I'm dating who is in front of me. And so I think that's probably where I stand, is that I've seen it work. I know many couples that have gotten married. One was Christian, both were non-Christian, and they both come to faith later in life. One of them does too, and those are really cool stories to hear about. Me personally, I personally would have a hard time, is my spouse going to be in heaven with me? And am I solely doing this for the sake of earthly blessings? Or do I have eternity in mind? And so I think that's kind of where I would stand on it, of that I've seen it work. I've seen really amazing things come out of it, but it can be a dangerous line to walk. So I, proceed with caution, if you will.
Yeah. I'm not at all referring to your scenario, referring to the scenario you kind of painted there. Just because the Lord blesses a decision that was probably unwise doesn't retroactively make it wise, right?
Yes.
The Lord can bless whatever He wants to bless, and He can work in whatever He wants to work in. That doesn't let you off the hook for unwise decisions. So do your best to make wise decisions and to be discerning. And if the Lord chooses to bless it, He chooses to bless it. Everything you said was really well said. I like that. It's a dangerous path to walk, but sometimes it works.
Yeah, and I would say too, prayer is so powerful. And so I think if you meet someone that has a lot of those qualities that you're looking for, praying about it is critical. Any season of life, but especially there, seeing God's hand at work is something that you have for me. But also, again, everything goes back to Christian community. Talking to people who have that same foundation as you. Do you see any concerns? What advice do you have? Let's talk about this. You call me out if I'm acting out of line, or you encourage me if you see purpose in this. I think if we silo ourselves, again, like we talked about earlier, we're missing out on those blessings of advice and learning from other people's experiences as well. And so talk to people, pray. Like I don't want to say it's black and white. Nothing's ever black and white. But talking with people, getting encouragement from Scripture, talking with God, seeing His hand working. And so that's one more thing I would add to that.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for being willing to chat about that a little bit. I know I didn't prepare you at all, so thanks for handling those.
Yeah.
Before we run out of time here, we need to talk about, and I want to talk about go into the world. So I'm going to ask you a two-part question. Go ahead and handle it however you like. What is go into the world, and how did it get started?
Yeah, great question. So, Go Into the World is I'd say it's essentially a social media platform that provides biblical encouragement to Christians, and I've had the blessing of experiencing it, blessing other pre-Christians, as we referred to earlier. So we're reaching all types of people with Into the World, but it's a space for Christian community, and I think what it has morphed into from where it started, which I'll explain in a moment, it has really morphed into a community and focusing on that Christian encouragement with other like-minded individuals. And that was the direction that I have taken it, which is what I just explained, stemmed from me moving out here, of knowing, hey, I'm losing my immediate group of people. What can I do to build that for myself? And in hopes, blessing other people too. And so what turned into moving out here was, like I said, biblical encouragement, but also virtual Bible studies. So we've been able to meet, like me and a few other girls across the country. Like, it's so cool. I think we probably average like 5 or 6 people on a Bible study, but everyone's from a different state. And it's realizing that's really cool, that we all have the same priority, or like a lot of the same importance of our faith and community, and we're gathering together regardless of if there's thousands of miles between us. So it's kind of a space for Christians to find encouragement and not feel left behind or not feel left out, and having that space of, I belong here and there are people who are supporting me. I'm not alone. So I think that's where it's gone to. If you want me to, do you want me to hop into where it started as well
Sure,
as
yeah.
part of this? Okay. Yeah. So again, this is one of those similar things to moving to Idaho, going to Wisconsin Lutheran College, is that it wasn't very well thought out. I just kind of started it. So like I said, I graduated from WLC. I had a degree in marketing, and let's see, my freshman year was 2020. So we had an extended Christmas break, and I'm at home and I'm bored out of my mind. I'm just thinking, like, I want to like do marketing, I'm just studying it now. Like, I want to do it. I want to start my own business. And so what has started over Christmas break was me printing off stickers on like an at-home printer. I had gotten like protective sheet to cover it so it's waterproof or whatever. And I'm like hand cutting these scissors out because I wanted that experience of what it's like to sell things and to market them. And so it expanded. God blessed it into, I was selling apparel for a while. I don't know. It's so fun. Sometimes I see random people wearing my Therefore Go shirts, out in public, like whatever, when I'm back in the Midwest. But that stems from Therefore Go. It's a great commission of, you have a purpose, you're placed here. And it's kind of like, what are you doing standing there? Like, go share the gospel and baptize Christians. And so that's kind of where it started, was like, I want this to be Bible based. I'm not really sure where it's going to go. And then it turned into this kind of cool platform of encouraging people. And I had people reach out to, like, I did a few events. I was like a vendor at a few events, or I was able to donate a lot of things to um, some organizations at like high schools. And one of the, New Beginnings is an organization, nonprofit in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So that was really cool to be able to connect with that as well. So it's kind of taken a few different directions at different points, but it really is just like we kind of talked about earlier. What am I feeling? What do I want to do? And seeing where God takes that. So it started it wasn't thought out. It was just like, let's just do this and see what happens. And so I've been very blessed to see where it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. There's often a lot of machinery involved with getting a ministry off the ground and started. Um, what can I'm going to ask this in a very obstinate way, so don't read too
Okay.
much into it. What gives you the right or the ganas or the authority or whatever it is to be starting something like this?
Mhm.
Why you, and how come you get to be the one that does this?
Um, I'll kind of, connect a few of the dots we've been kind of seeing as a theme throughout. Is God has given me skills and interests that are unique to me, and He's placed me in positions that are unique to me. And I think it goes back to just do it. And I think that's why I can, because I am God's child, and He's given me a heart for ministry and a heart for sharing the gospel. And so who am I to say I should hide in this corner? If He wants to use you to do something like that, then go and do it. And I think that's the qualification, is that you're a willing and able body instrument. for him to use. And I think it's just as simple as that.
Yeah. Just to give it a go, right?
Hmm.
Um, uh, one of the one of the things that's been growing as a passion for me is exactly what you're talking about, right? This idea of like I see a need and I think I can fill that need, so I'm going to try, right?
Hmm.
Whether that be something I see it at Abiding Peace, my vicar congregation, all the
Hmm.
time, where there's just people taking stuff off of the plate, right? There's this stuff that needs to be done at church, whether it's stuff that's a pastor's responsibility or whatever it is, and people just show up and pluck something out and just, I'm taking this off your plate, pastor. You don't have to worry about it anymore, right?
Hmm.
I'm just taking care of this, like there's some maintenance that needs to be done on a school building. I can handle that. Like we're talking about putting a budget together and somebody just goes, I got it. Don't worry about
Hmm.
it, right? I'll just take that off your plate. We might not think of fixing the school building as quote unquote ministry, but that's exactly what it is, right? Might
Hmm.
not think of spreading wood chips on the playground as that. You might not think of coffee with a couple other miles from church as that, but that's exactly
Hmm.
what you're doing, because what you're doing is building Christian community and providing opportunities for the gospel to be shared, right?
Hmm.
And what I hear you saying is you looked at a need in your own life and you didn't explicitly say this, but I think it's probably true. You also said, if I'm sitting here, there's probably other people who are
Hmm.
experiencing the same thing. And even if you pointed out, it's probably 5 or 6 women on each one. Okay, so you found 5 or 6 women that can be tremendously blessed by this. And if it
Hmm.
doesn't work, then either we adjust and we try again, or we try something else, right? And we
Hmm.
just like, what's the price of failure on this stuff,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Just try. What about, and I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on this. What about asking permission? All right.
Hmm.
You're in a position where you don't really have to ask for permission, but you do have a pastor.
Hmm.
Why didn't you go to your pastor and say, hey, I want to start an official ministry of our church plant here and do a women's Bible study? Why was this a Mara thing and not a Christ alone thing?
Yeah, I think I could go a few different directions with this. But I think the main thing is that as important as the church is, we need the church, and I want to make that very clear. It's also important to reach people, and I think a lot of times with the different types of people that I meet, they have these preconceived ideas about the church, and obviously I want to be, if God allows me to, be a tool to show them the blessings of the church. But sometimes it's reaching people where they're at. Um, and like I said, like my, I guess, primary audience is already Christians that need encouragement. But I oftentimes think of the woman at the well that Jesus went to go meet. He didn't meet her at the temple. Like, she wasn't allowed in the temple. He met her where she was at in her everyday duties. He saw her needs, and he gave her the gift. He gave her him. He gave her Jesus, the sacrifice. And he met her where she's at. But now the story doesn't end there. What did she do with it? She went to go tell people. And I think that involves living out the life with a changed heart of what Jesus has done for you. And so eventually we want them to come to church. We want them to experience that blessing as well. But sometimes you have to first meet them where they're at. And so I think if you slap, Lutheran church on whatever it is, you might be missing people who want to have conversations about Jesus or interested in having those conversations, but whatever connotation or like preconceived notion they have about Lutherans, they might already be closed off. And so I think that's the unique role we play as lay missionaries. Can I say that? Lay Christians in the church. Of we can reach people where they're at. And like you mentioned, there are so many opportunities to help out in the church with the church facilities, buildings, mission work there. But there is this element of just reaching people where they're at in your everyday lives. And I think that's kind of why I've just taken it on my own. Like, I don't see the need to make it an institutional thing that's affiliated with the church, but it really is just a group of Christians talking about the gospel and having open conversation. One more thing I'll add about this area of Idaho is that there are so many Bible studies going on all the time. And we have a few ladies at church that put out in the Facebook group, like to the entire population of Idaho Falls, hey, I'm getting a group of people together to study the Bible. It's not affiliated with the church, but it's a Bible study, and people want to learn about the Bible. because there's so much talk about it. What is this? Let's talk about it. So I think it provides a really great segue to blessings of the church without making it that hard barrier to entry first.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is a good time to point out that church, like, you are the church,
Yeah.
right? There might be a building, we might be organized and have a name, right? And you do have a pastor who is serving and shepherding you, and watching out for your spiritual care and so forth, right? But
Hmm.
you are the church, and we tend to get that mixed up, right? It is not the pastor who is the church. It is not the building that is the church. You are the church, right?
Hmm.
And your call is to bring other people into the capital C Christian church. And now you also have a church community to which you belong, and you're organized under an over shepherd who then watches out for your spiritual care and your needs, right? But his job is to shepherd you, right?
Hmm.
Your job then is to go into the world,
Hmm.
and be doing the same for others, right? You're a shepherd under a shepherd under a shepherd, right?
Hmm.
Which is a wonderful blessing, and it's a wonderful way to look at you, right? And when I have to ask permission all the time to just do the work of the capital C church because I'm worried about the work of the small c church, which would be a proper name, so I guess it would still be a
Hmm.
capital C, but that's a different problem, right? Um, then I lose the dexterity and the ability to actually meet people exactly where they're at. And there's, particularly when you're talking about women, and particularly when you're talking about young women, it doesn't matter how great your pastor is. There are just some things he can't do or won't do, or at least can't do or won't do as well as you can, right?
Hmm.
He's never gonna, he might have a dozen daughters. He will never know what it's like to be a girl, right? He might have the most, uh, the gentlest heart. He might be the most compassionate man in the world. He will never know what it's like to be a woman, right? You just don't, right? And that relation, and men and women are different, and that relationship between you and your Savior is just different, right?
Hmm.
And the other part of that is, if we wait for the pastor to do the work of the church might grow if the pastor's great, right?
Hmm.
The Lord might use the pastor. But who's called to go out into the world and make disciples of all nations? It's
Hmm.
not pastors, it's Christians. So it's part of your pastor's vocation because he's a Christian, but your pastor's vocation is to shepherd his flock. It's your responsibility to be teaching and
Hmm.
preaching and baptizing and so forth. Well, maybe not. You know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And going back to the asking for permission thing, that you mentioned, my personal personality, my characteristic, my whatever, I will do anything against the grain. Like, if you tell me to go here, I'm sorry, I'm going over there. But I think what I have struggled with sharing the gospel is I need to use the right words to the right person at the right time in order for them to convert in that moment. And I think I know what that is doing, and that's putting me in the power of working in that person's heart. And so in the same way of whatever ministry or whatever work you want to do, if you're putting that on you of I need to make sure this is perfect in order to you're kind of missing out on the whole point of God working with your flaws and your shortcomings and making that beautiful. So I think obviously you want him centered, you want him as the focal point of whatever ministry you're doing. But if what's holding you back is that it's not perfect in your mind, that's where God does the best work, is when it's not perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would also venture to say, that you are probably, approaching all of this work, with the kind of humility where if somebody from church or pastor or somebody, right, tapped you on the shoulder one day and said, "Hey, I'm concerned about, this aspect of what you're doing," you'd probably be ready and willing to listen. That's one of the benefits of that strong church community that we talked about earlier, right? These things are all connected and interconnected, right?
Mm.
A vibrant and healthy church culture creates vibrant and healthy Christians.
Mhm.
And vibrant and healthy Christians create a vibrant and healthy church culture. These things all work work together, and we are all on the same team,
Mhm.
doing the work of the church. And so the better we can utilize the resources in front of us, whether it's formally or informally, you are a tool that the Lord is using to take his word out into the world. And we ought, I see that's a great name because it just keeps naturally coming out of my mouth whether I'm thinking about it or not. That is good branding, Mara. That is well
Thank you.
done.
It was
Uh,
naive 20-year-old Mara. That's all I gotta say.
I wouldn't expect anything less of somebody that does marketing for a living. So
Mm.
maybe you chose the right profession. I don't know. But I guess I'll just say thank you for doing what you're doing and encourage, just generally speaking, folks listening, we need you to be uniquely you and do uniquely your work. Right. So whether that is fixing the sinks underneath in the bathrooms at church, whether that is starting a little something online to encourage a few people, whether that is arguing with some of the stuff you see online. There is a place for that too, right? It's not my place. I'm not going to do it. So somebody has to. So if
Mhm.
that's you, go do it and do it with joy and do it with grace and pray for the Lord's blessing and the Lord's guidance as you do so. And then be ready if it, to make adjustments as you go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. All
Thank
right.
you.
Um, say you're out on a frontier. I'm jealous. I've always said, like when I get a little bit antsy, and I got antsy a lot when I was in Milwaukee. There was always like this idea. I just want to go west. I just want to
Mhm.
go west. Like there's wide open spaces and there's fewer people and they think a little bit more freely, and all of that's true. So I'm a little jealous that you get to be out there, and we'll see where the Lord takes me in a couple of
Yes.
years here. But I'm a little bit jealous that you get to be out there on the Christian frontier, on the church frontier, and the true American frontier too. I'm a little bit jealous of all that. But there is a unique kind of exhaustion, I'll say, tied to both of the things that you're so actively involved in, right? Being, I can speak with great authority on the exhaustion attached to being the one responsible for an online ministry.
Mhm.
I also know that there's a unique exhaustion to being part of that small Christian community too, especially when you're intentionally there as part of the church start. So what is it that keeps you going? What is it like when it's just not, because not everything's fun all the time. When it
Mhm.
just stinks,
Mhm.
but you're here to do it. What is it that keeps pushing you back into the work that you're doing already, even when it's not easy and when things get challenging and hard?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I've experienced that moving out here, whether it's comparing myself to not doing enough, like looking at what other people are doing and thinking that I'm not doing enough ministry. That's exhausting, or whether it is, you know, you're out 3 nights a week doing whatever activity it is that's with church, or the summertime is very busy. So we're in a very busy season right now of um the church of we have a lot of activities that are going on in the community, and it can be exhausting to look at the calendar ahead and see, oh my goodness, there's no way I have the stamina for this. And so I think there's a few things that are going on, or how to approach that. One of them is you are human and you do have human needs. You don't want to exhaust yourself. And so I think it's important to look at it introspectively and think, what is it that I need? Do I need this challenge? Am I trying to make excuses for myself and not want to be involved? Or am I not okay? Do I need to take a step back and reset, reground myself in who I am in Christ, and then come back with that fresh perspective? Because I think it can look however from the outside. It can look like, well, Mara is not participating in church, she's not helping out enough, or it's, oh, she's helping out so much. But on the back end, you don't know what I'm giving up in order. I might be selling myself essentially to volunteer. And so I think it's always going in with, where is my heart in this? And is it in the right place? And if it's not in the right place, if I'm not being able to serve with joy or humility or with gratitude, let's figure out how to reorient that with what Christ wants us to serve, or how he wants us to serve. So like I said, yeah, there's some areas of the year where it's super busy and you just have to grind it out a little bit of, there's a lot going on and we just have a lot of work to do. But there's also this element of, make sure your heart's in the right place when you're doing it, because if you're doing it just to check a box, you're not in the right place. So have that, realignment with yourself. pray, make sure that God's putting your heart in the right place and giving you the resources to do that. But I think it's important to remember that we're human and that sometimes we need rest. Like God commands us to rest. That's important for us. And so finding the space to do that, being intentional, I think is just really important. So I don't know if that really answered your question super well, but that's how I approach burnout and just being super busy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I also have the tendency to hustle, obviously. Like I've always got something else going on and something else to do and will crash hard. Like the wheels come off and we're done. Right. For me, it always comes back to drinking deeply the word. And I don't mean that the more time I spend in Bible study, the more energy I have for everything else. But when I start to burn out, it's usually because I'm not using my time and talents and I'm not stewarding very well, whether it's stewarding time, stewarding resources, whatever it is. And when I am drinking deeply daily of the word, it keeps all things in proper perspective and helps me make better decisions about stewardship, I would say. And so it's not that, I spend time in God's word, and so the Lord rewards me with more energy and all that, because he absolutely doesn't. A lot of times it's similar to what you said. A lot of times I drink deeply the word and go, okay, yeah, no, that's a pride thing. That I don't need that, right? Or this is not working. Why are you so stubbornly sticking to it? I guess that's probably a pride thing too, right? There's a lot of pride flying around. But that puts things back into proper perspective so I can make better decisions about it. I think that's more the way I think about it is, okay, I chose to do these things, and these are the non-negotiable things. I don't have energy for them. So what are the negotiable things that I have let grow or shift out of the proper priority, if that makes sense? Yeah. So.
Yeah. And it goes along with one of the things that I tell people is that life can get really confusing when you only look at the outcome or only look at what happens. And we don't see the heart. We can't see people's heart posture in life. And so that's God's job, but at the same time, we can see our own heart posture. And so a lot of times I'll tell people, like, I care less about what you're doing and more about what led you to do that. And a lot of times I'm that child as an adult asking why, but it really does unveil what is your driving factor. And if your driving factor is yourself or people pleasing or whatever it is, that's not God. And so that's where the realignment needs to happen. And so asking why over what you're doing, I think is a really important question to consider.
Awesome. All right. We could keep talking all afternoon,
I
I'm
know.
sure. This has been just a lovely conversation. I'm very happy to have had it with you. We'll make sure we include some links down below if anybody is interested in learning more about Into the World. I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, come join us. We have Bible studies starting frequently, so we'd love to have you join wherever you are. Yeah.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that we drop church links and things like that down below as well. All my links will be there. Mara, again, thank you so much for being willing to be on the show. I forgot to pull up a document, so give me just a second while I...
No, you're good. Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed. I love Christian conversations. This has been fulfilling to me. So thank you for having the space for conversations like this, because it's a blessing.
Good. All right. I can't even find there we go. And back. Here we go. Big thanks to Mara for being on the show and joining us today. If you want to be part of the Gird Up mission, you're in the right place. Hit follow or subscribe, leave a rating, review, whatever it is on the platform you're using, and share this episode with somebody who you think's needs a community just like this one. If you'd like to support the work that we do here at Gird Up, you can consider a cup of You gotta love being able to edit videos. That's for sure.
Yes.
All right. So anyway, big thanks to Mara for joining us as our guest today. Lovely conversation. Very much enjoyed it. If you want to be part of the Gird Up mission, you're in the right place. Hit follow or subscribe, leave a rating and review, and share this episode with somebody who you think could use a community just like this one. If you want to support the work we do here at Gird Up, consider a cup of coffee donation. Go to www.girdupministries.com, select buy us a cup of coffee, and flood the internet with confessional content. And if you've got questions, topics, guest ideas, anything like that, send them my way via the link down in the show notes. I love you all. God bless you. And I can't wait to talk to you again next week.